Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of On the Pony Express. I'm Billy Embody. With me, Dean Ralsky, as the sun is setting on ACC Football Kickoff's first day of coverage. We break down everything that happened here in Charlotte, in Uptown, in just a minute on this edition of On the Pony Express, which starts right now.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go!
That is right. It is On the Pony Express. Billy Embody, Dean Ralsky here for all your ontheponyexpress.com coverage. Make sure you guys are subscribed over there. Today, we are entering year 3, covering the ACC and SMU being in the league. This is certainly a league now for SMU that's very familiar. We see familiar faces in the media. We see familiar faces with the coaches and the players, even in some cases. But Dean, this is a early start for us on ACC Media Days because SMU's on Friday.
That's right.
So let's dive into the news of the week. SMU centering around Kevin Jennings, Heisman Trophy campaign, Recovery Center. But before we do that, I do want to remind everybody that we, of course, are presented by our friends at ViewJet, VUEJET.com. Make sure you guys go online today and book your travel for the 2026 football season. It is getting down to those moments where you've got to get your flight together, you've got to get your group together, and ViewJet, when you book with them and mention On the Pony Express, they'll donate money to NIL efforts for SMU, and they'll give you the best price for being a Mustang fan. So appreciate them for supporting us. Of course, we didn't fly here with them, but that's okay. We'll leave that to the football team.
That's right.
Kevin Jennings flying high going into this season. He's healthy. The school is building the buzz around him. What's your takeaway when they announced the Heisman Trophy campaign with Kevin?
I think they're just going all in on Kevin Jennings, and Kevin Jennings is a guy that went all in on SMU. You know, a lot of SMU fans now know the story about wasn't recruited very well out of high school. SMU took a chance on him, and what a chance it was. And this is that year to really prove maybe one of the best return on investments in SMU football history here for Kevin Jennings. As you said, flying high, the sky is the limit for Kevin Jennings this year.
I think looking at the campaign, the King of Dallas, it's certainly a bold statement. But look, number one, Mavs are leaving, Stars are leaving eventually, so maybe he really is already the King of Dallas.
That's
Cowboys don't play in Dallas. But nonetheless, they are branding him as somebody who has stayed home, like you said. D Magazine did a feature on him, and they said there's nobody really more Dallas in the athlete world than Kevin Jennings right now. And for SMU to have him as their quarterback, for him to turn down opportunities to leave, probably for one of the teams we're covering here today,
that's right.
In all likelihood, with the way their quarterback hunt went, this is a moment to go all in to support him and everything he's trying to do on the field, off the field, legacy-wise. It's hard to see it almost in the moment when you see a school put their athletes out there like this. But as a fan, you'll look back next year, or even maybe, let's say, hopefully end of January or whatever, it's not a big deal, but let's say late December, early next year as the portal's opening, and you're wondering what's SMU going to do at quarterback, it's really going to click for a lot of people how valuable he's been.
Absolutely. I think building the brand around him is huge, but I also think building the brand around the city of Dallas is huge too, in terms of that's where SMU gets a majority of their high school recruits. And so to say, yes, we preach, hey, come be the city of Dallas. But no, now we have a whole campaign being centered around being the King of Dallas. That can be you as well in a few years. Kevin Jennings is going to have a great year. But to have that sort of messaging across to recruits as well. I mean, Malachi Ziegler, when I interviewed him after one of his official visits to SMU, he was here a few times, but he said, why would you turn down the opportunity of being the face of Dallas? Like, he sees the vision, he's fully bought in, and I think other recruits around the country are going to pick up on that as well.
I think, too, there is an NIL component of it, too. They can film a documentary on him. They released the video on Monday, announcing this campaign and then touting his accomplishments. There's no doubt that Kevin Jennings has to improve, and improve in some areas and critical ones. But his legacy and his Heisman campaign is largely going to be built on SMU winning and winning big games and getting to the point in the season where you look up and they're either undefeated or they have one loss somewhere on that road to South Bend. Then you see if they get through that. But if you make it to Charlotte, that's an SMU team that's going to be 10-2, I think, at worst if they get to Charlotte.
Yeah.
They're sitting there with a pretty decent shot to make the college football playoff. In that sense, you have to start telling the story of somebody like Kevin Jennings earlier, because he's not Arch Manning, he's not Julian Sayin, he's not insert whatever brand quarterback. I mean, Keelan Russell has better Heisman odds than Kevin Jennings.
Wild.
SMU fans
he may not even start for them.
Yeah, and SMU fans hope that he has just an okay time at Bama this year, right? But it's one of those things where SMU has sat, and we said this, or at least I said this might have even been when you were still just a subscriber, Dean, in high school. SMU sat quietly and worked behind the scenes on a lot of this realignment stuff. They sat quietly and just built their athletic programs up and things like that to get into this position. Now they're in a position where they have the ability, they have the resources to market players how they should be marketed. And that's a big selling point for athletes of the future. And don't let that, be lost in this either. And it kind of leads into the Recovery Center too.
Yeah, absolutely, which we'll get to. The only other thing I'd want to say, too, is yes, you'd want to have this fairy tale ending with Kevin Jennings and make the college football playoff and go on a run. But, regardless of what season he has coming up, I mean, he brought this team into the ACC. That's what people need to remember when they bring up this branding is like, there's really historical significance. I mean, SMU's first 2 years in the ACC being as successful as they were, that's in large part thanks to Kevin Jennings. And so I think people need to remember that. Coming into this year, yes, you want him to be in New York for the Heisman race and SMU to be playing in the college football playoff. But he has made an impact on SMU already.
And I think part of that is, unless this thing goes full like Clemson or whatever from last year, the floor for this team should be pretty high.
Correct.
So if they finish 9-3 in the regular season, and maybe win a bowl game, you're like, okay, that's a pretty good year. Probably falls short of where they want to be.
No doubt.
But he would still have a good season to get there. And I think to your point, people need to remember that is this Heisman campaign is also about just pushing SMU forward, pushing their most marketable player forward. They've been doing a lot of pubbing of P.J. Williams, I think, too, who's their projected, in some cases, first-round pick. Keep all of that in mind as you kind of sift through some of this stuff, while knowing that, they know that they got to go out on the field and start fast in the early season and not throw interceptions and establish a run game. They still got to play defense. It's a team game. Kevin knows that. He's really coming into his own as far as being able to understand his legacy and what he's leaving here, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to your point of they know they have to go out and perform. It's July. They can't play a game yet. You know what I mean? They have to take advantage of the PR ahead of the season, or else otherwise you're going to be stuck with a great quarterback that no one's going to talk about. So they're doing what they can at this moment.
And I think to build off of that, we mentioned the Recovery Center briefly.
We did. So,
and part of me was like, I can't believe SMU is announcing this on the first day of ACC Media Days, which I still feel that way while we're sitting here. Too, but that's just me being salty. Now it gives another thing for the media to talk with Kevin about when he comes to Charlotte. Yes, I would have rather have done it Tuesday, but World Cup. I would have rather done it Monday. Was there World Cup? You tell me. I don't think so.
No.
But look, they did it when they did it.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see some of the reactions. I follow Jason Todd, the South Oak Cliff coach, on Twitter. He had some really nice things to say about the program and Kevin and all those things. But also it stretched all the way down to Houston. I saw some high school, kind of high school adjacent, NIL, 7-on-7 type of people, really being like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So the Recovery Center, the Kevin Jennings Recovery Center, a huge deal for the Holland family to support that as well. This is kind of a NIL adjacent thing as well with Kevin and again, just giving back to the university that's given him a lot. And that's something that for him is going to be a really cool legacy to leave, and a pretty special moment there today in Dallas.
And I think that's another thing, too. In this NIL world, a lot of players will just go to a school for a year, make $1 million or $2 million, and then leave. And they've gotten their paycheck, and that's great. But this is a way for SMU to kind of show another way of saying, like, we are a family. We take care of a family. You know, this alumni network for the university, for the football program. Like, it's just, yes, another way to pay your player, but almost in, like, a deeper way than just being like, here's $1.5 million, go score some touchdowns, you know? So.
And they unveiled the Heisman shirts, too, to go along with the campaign, too. I saw some of those roll out there. They do look great. Yeah. So hopefully there's a lot more of them out there. Hopefully in deep November, we're just all getting ready to wear them to New York or something like that. But the Recovery Center is going to be a cool deal inside the Gary Weber End Zone Complex. It's going to be one of those areas in the facility where athletes can obviously recover, but relax, recharge, some treatment type of things. And that area is going to be the Kevin Jennings Recovery Center. So pretty cool stuff there. Again, just building up towards what his season, what his legacy is for this program. And I think that's been done well. I think SMU fans that are maybe like, wow, this is a lot. It is a lot. Yeah. It's also new. And it's not something that a lot of people in this program have been exposed to. Yeah. Because it's never happened really before. They've not had in the modern era anybody that can be marketed to this level.
Well, and college football is all becoming about being the first, right? Yeah. Just in terms of NIL and marketing your players, this is another way to do it. Obviously, a lot of people know SMU was one of the first to really do NIL a while ago. And so they're just being innovative and finding new ways to do it that also not only just benefit marketing a player, but benefit the entire team with the facility itself.
Before we get into day one ACC reactions, takeaways, things of that nature, do want to remind you guys, of course, about our friends, Socorro Tequila. Socorro Tequila, dear friends of ours in the industry, of course. They have become an award-winning tequila brand. You guys can try the Añejo, the Blanco, the Reposado. You can order it online and get $10 off when you try all three, the Añejo, the Blanco, the Reposado. So check it out, SocorroTequila.com. Links in our episode description channel. And also want to thank our friends at Thomas Auto Group. Huge summer for them, expanding their Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram family as well to join the Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi dealerships they have. So head up 75, visit them in McKinney, or go to thomasautogroup.com and find out more on their selection of vehicles and get employee pricing when you do mention us on the Pony Express. Speaking of mentions, we did get some SMU mentions in, some SMU conversation in on day one of ACC Media Days. Dean, you sat down with a few players across the league today. What were some of your takeaways, at least off of day one from that and those early conversations?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me was because of the success SMU has had the first couple of years, teams are really excited to play SMU. I mean, I talked to a few Stanford players today, and each of them were like, can't wait for the end of the year when we play SMU. Talked to some Florida State players who that's very early on in the season, and everyone was very complimentary of SMU, as you would expect them to be in an event like this. But not that they have a target on their back, but they're not flying under the radar anymore. This is not a football program that's going to sneak up on people. I saw it. It got announced that the preseason poll will come out on August 17th, so we'll have to wait and see where SMU ranks there. But everyone's very complimentary of SMU and excited. They're a fun team to play against, I think.
We got to spend a large majority of our day, in a sense. One, the commissioner spoke today, Jim Phillips. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Yeah. But Florida State, Miami taking really center stage on this Wednesday, along with NC State, Stanford, and Virginia. So 5 teams kicking it off here in Charlotte. But Miami, FSU hit home in terms of SMU fans' attention, maybe for a couple reasons. Of course, SMU opens at Florida State. SMU also beat Miami last year and is hoping to challenge them again in Charlotte, right here. In Charlotte for the ACC championship. They're the two most likely favorites.
I think by the odds, they are the 2 favorites right now.
Yeah, and we'll see with the preseason poll. I still think there's going to be a million Clemson media that roll right in and maybe vote for the Tigers there. But that's just me after seeing it last year. It was just a sea of orange. But for SMU, let's start with Florida State.
Yeah.
They brought, obviously, Mike Norvell. It's an interesting situation there going into this season. They brought Ashton Daniels, their quarterback, who SMU fans did see a couple years ago. They brought Deuce Robinson, one of the top wide receivers in the country, just a massive dude in general. And then Jabril Rawls, who's from an area I'm familiar with, Pensacola originally, and now one of the best defensive backs in this league. And talking with them, you got the sense that this is a game that's going to mean a lot. Obviously, no duh, but it's also placed interestingly for FSU. It's not their first game. It's week 1. They play week 0 against New Mexico State. Florida State is having to walk that line of obviously preparing for New Mexico State at home, but then you've got a major Labor Day night game against SMU to kick off your ACC season. Mike Norvell had a lot of good things to say about SMU, though.
And so did Ashton Daniels and Deuce Robinson. It was kind of tricky asking them because, again, they're like, we have a game before SMU, right? So they want to be conscious of that. But they understand that that's a big test for them. And I think something good for SMU. And, look, that game is huge for SMU in their fight for the ACC championship. But that game is equally, if not more important for Florida State. I mean, they need to win that game, especially Mike Norvell, to really have any chance of surviving this season, really. And so, again, I just said SMU is not going to surprise anybody. They're going to be in the spotlight. But I think a lot of the pressure will be at Florida State. They're at home in front of their fans. If things don't go well quickly, could turn on them. We saw that a little bit at Clemson a year ago when things weren't going well early in that game for the Tigers. So, Ashton Daniels seems confident. He knew Deuce Robinson a little bit. They had a mutual friend who was a wide receiver at Stanford a couple years ago, so they had a little bit of a relationship, and now it's obviously grown a lot since they've gotten to know each other even more. But that's a really good running back room as well. It's going to be a good challenge for the Mustangs.
And I think talking with Mike Norvell, he has confidence in himself. And, you could say that. It could be lip service, whatever, but I think Mike Norvell does. And he's done this a long time. You don't get to what he's accomplished in spurts without being some semblance of a good football coach. And there's a lot of heat on him. I still think Florida State is a program that kind of fell off and didn't do some of the right things with NIL and some of the things they needed to be doing. But they've started to figure it out a little bit more. And even he brought up, like, I'm confident in myself, confident in the people I'm with, and that's kind of his stance. He's not going to worry about, and he doesn't really feel like he's coaching for his job. Now, is that lip service? Are they going to fire him? I don't know. And the pressure is on there. If they crater, they probably will.
Yeah.
But if they're middle of the pack again, but they make a bowl game and get up there, I just don't know. I think it starts with getting to 2-0 for FSU.
Yeah.
At the same time, SMU, this isn't a team that this year I want to see the whole, okay, well, they're going to get better later in the year. I mean, you have 2 major games in the first 3 weeks of the season. You have the short week coming for the home opener as well, so it's tricky a little bit there. But you have enough key players back. You have a transfer class that seems like they've got a little bit of they're trying to prove something a little bit. And if some of the end of the season lessons were learned as far as taking their foot off the gas for Cal in a sense, and some of those things that stick in the back of their heads, I feel good about SMU. If you look at the offseason and what they're facing going into Florida State, it's a lot of like pat on the back kind of thing, even though the odds don't support that. Like, that's for that game, it's just a tricky, like, who's got the pressure.
Exactly.
SMU fans would be like, oh yeah, there's a ton of pressure on this team to go out there and win because we're expecting to win. We're expecting to go to Charlotte. We're expecting to go to a college football playoff. But for Florida State, the pressure is like, oh, if they lose that game and look poorly doing it, holy cow! I mean, it's just going to be the picket signs are going to be, the for sale signs are going to be out in Mike Norvell's front yard again.
Well, and I think that could work out well for SMU because they will put pressure on themselves, and I think they should. I mean, you've got to start the year fast, as you were saying. Florida State will feel the same way. I think nationally, most people would feel like Florida State has more pressure because nationally, from big picture, you can say, well, SMU can bounce back. There's just that easygoing approach. But SMU will feel the pressure itself. One thing I know, too, Florida State does not have a single returning offensive lineman coming back from last year to this year. So whether they had the best group of offensive linemen a year ago, that's up for debate. But not a lot of continuity there. New quarterback, some new receivers. Like, it's a brand new offense. And as many people talk about with these transfer-heavy teams, like, is it going to come together week one? For Florida State, it has to. Statistically, generally speaking, it hasn't for teams that rely on a lot of transfers, so that's another thing that could go in SMU's favor as well.
Yeah, and Mike Norvell going to be calling plays again.
That's right.
A big
and Tom Herman
as
well.
Yeah, Tom Herman's on staff there, so that came out just before this as well. So we're going to be really interesting stuff there. FSU, Miami. To quote one of the players, I asked the impressions of SMU last year. He said, "quote, mother effing rolling." I'll just leave it at that. You can find the video on our YouTube channel and figure out which Miami player it was. And it's kind of like mumbled, and I was like, what? Like, I didn't want to say, hey, say that again. But you picked up on it, and everybody else is like, eyebrows going up. There's a lot of respect for what SMU's building, and that's that fine line to walk where, as a fan base, you're seeing this team grow up into this. Well, they're going to be at the top of the ACC in the preseason polls. They're expected to do this. They're expected to do that. And you're seeing that type of respect dished out here in Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, Miami is consensus number one team in the ACC, similar to how Clemson was a year ago. Now we know how that worked out for the Tigers a year ago, so that does not mean Miami is going to go 12-0. Again, SMU does not play them. As you said earlier, they hope to play them here in 5 months for the ACC championship, but
just set them up on two separate sides of the bracket. And
let's just let the best two teams.
Where is it, Vegas this year? Yeah.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, exactly, right? The 1 and 2 seeds, obviously. But no, I mean, Miami, Darian Mensah coming in at quarterback, everyone is sky high on him because you return Malachi Toney, one of the best receivers in college football. You bring his favorite target from Duke, Cooper Barkate, Mark Fletcher. I can't believe he didn't go pro last year. I thought he had such a great end to the season. Yeah. So, I mean, they've got weapons all the way around. Now, that has often been the story of Miami, is they have weapons. But now that they've proved that they can do it, it seems like there's another level of just confidence and security about that program.
And that is if you're looking for a rat poison-ish type of thing there for former Nick Saban assistant Mario Cristobal, that's got to be what he's got to battle every day, because you still lost Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, Francis Maui Noah, who we interviewed here last year. Right. Wesley Bissain, I don't think he's back. I think he's gone.
No,
he was
gone.
He was like a
CJ Daniels, wide receiver. I mean, a lot of guys.
And that offensive line is going to look different. I mean, there are players in that starting 5 that were recruited over previously. You know, their starting center was a guy who's got passed over 2 years in a row. Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 overall prospect, is going to be the left tackle. Now, he looks the part, but
that's a lot of pressure.
It's still a lot of pressure. And also, when you lose some of those super key players that did so much and did some of those game-changing plays, think about some of the X factor that SMU lost off that 24 team on that defense, the Elijah Roberts, Jonathan McGill, guys like that we look back and they're like, there was some X factor lost there. That's what Miami has to answer for this year.
Yeah.
And that's going to make them still an interesting watch. And at the same time, I expect them to go well into the season undefeated before they hit any sort of resistance. Yeah, no,
I agree. Again, you can be wary of opponents. And I think Coach Cristobal will do a good job of saying, we're not guaranteed. We don't just start the year 7-0. You have to go win those football games, and they play some ACC teams. I mean, look, a week 1 visit across country to Stanford is awkward. I'm not going to say it's going to cause a lot of problems, but it's not straightforward. So, they'll have to be ready right away. But the offensive line, I mean, starting a true freshman left tackle, I don't care how good you are, that's not easy as well. But again, Coach Cristobal, I just think, will be wary of we've got to be focused from week 1, and they'll be on their way.
And, I mean, he was asked about the time zones going out to Stanford. I mean, they're going to leave, it sounds like, 3 days early and take that approach like they're playing a bowl game almost. So they'll be out there adjusted to the time zone and try to figure it out that way, since that is their first game.
Right.
That won't be Stanford's first game. They face Hawaii in week 0. For Miami, there's a ton of buzz around them. To kind of put a bow on this day, we didn't spend as much time in the rooms with NC State. SMU doesn't face the Wolfpack this year, at least unless they both go to
make a
Charlotte.
run.
You do have Stanford, who you spent some time with their crew. SMU ends the regular season with Stanford, and then Virginia, SMU gets them in the middle of the season. What were your takeaways? Let's focus on Virginia, Stanford, kind of just quick hits on those, and then we'll get to the commissioner and get out of here.
Couple things with Virginia. I mean, you've got a lot of new guys at skill positions. Bo Pribula coming from Missouri had some ups and some downs there, so we'll have to wait and see on him. A couple of transfer running backs coming in for Virginia as well. Not necessarily high-end guys, but guys they're confident in. The continuity is on the offensive line, which is huge. Returned 4 or 5 starters, and that was a strength for this team last year as well when they went 11-3, 11-1 in the regular season. Defensively, seems like they'll be okay. So Virginia is going to be a team to watch out for. I probably didn't give them enough credit coming into ACC Media Days. They've grown, in my view, because I just think having a strong offensive line you can rely on is huge. Stanford on the other side, again, new quarterback. They didn't do a lot in the portal. I think they brought in 6 total guys. That's just not their game.
It's tough for new head coach Tavita Pritchard.
Exactly. And new offensive coordinator, completely new staff. But having a head coach who used to be the quarterbacks coach at the Commanders allows you to bring in a proven guy in Davis Warren, who was at Michigan, missed all of last year with an injury. But he should have a relatively high floor from what they've seen in years past. And so even if he's had some ups and some downs, they've got a good running back in Michael Ford as well. They'll still be towards the bottom of the ACC, truth be told, it seems like. But whenever there's a new coaching staff and some new players, there's always going to be some positivity and excitement around the program.
No question. And before we get to comments from Commissioner Jim Phillips, do want to remind you guys as well about our friends at Horn Legend. I flew in on the 5 a.m. And wore this all day, feeling nice, feeling pretty comfortable with our friends at Horn Legend outfitting us. So make sure you guys go to hornlegend.com, Horn legend.com. Everyone I talk to that sees their SMU gear immediately goes, where is that from?
Yeah.
I mean, it's true.
No, I've had that too.
Yeah, you got the fresh hoodie I'm sure you're going to rock this week as well. So there's a lot to like about Horn Legend. Make sure you guys click the drop down and tell them On the Pony Express sent you when you check out with your cart full of goodies. So appreciate Horn Legend for their support of us here. Dean, as we get to kind of closing out here, day one, Jim Phillips at the podium. A lot of conversation around playoff, tiebreaker, tampering, all the things, the legislation going on in Washington, D.C. What were a couple of key things that stood out to you?
I think the tiebreaker is number one because it was clear that under these new rules, Jim Phillips made it clear that head-to-head will still be the most important thing. So if you're able to decipher teams that way, that's how they'll do it. If you're unable to, they'll use the SSA system, which is what the College Football Playoff uses to help with their rankings, to determine who gets to the conference championship. And that will reflect who has the strongest body of work, I believe, is how Jim Phillips put it. So that meant that last year's Duke team would not make the ACC championship. Last year's SMU team would not make the ACC championship. You likely would have seen Miami, I would guess. So that'll be something to watch this year as there are teams playing 9 conference games, 8 conference games. How will some of those tiebreakers work between teams who played different number of conference games? That was my biggest takeaway, just because that was a big point, a big topic when it came about at the end of last season.
I think, too, I would have liked to have seen the ACC message that with more teams playing conference 9 conference games, you're less likely to see that kind of a train wreck at the end of the season, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
The cream should rise to the top. Now, there can still be chaos, but
there probably will be knowing the ACC. But.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Jumping up, like, if 12 of the 15 would have played 9 games last year, I think somebody would have gotten Duke. Whatever teams were missing from Duke's schedule, the ad probably would have been a formidable foe. So maybe I'm wrong, but those are the things that can certainly be messaged a little bit better for the ACC. And then we can kind of look ahead and say, okay, what's going to happen at the end of this year? How does that happen? Like Miami and SMU, they don't play each other. I'm sure there's not much crossover, but the playing more games is going to help. And then in 27, it'll be all but one team playing 9 games. So like the SEC had a clear picture this year. I expect the ACC will get a clearer picture.
Well, and how much longer are we going to have conference championships? Is it just going to be play-ins next year? Like, how soon does that come in? So it's seems like a good solution. They said they had run over, 1,000 or 10,000 simulations using this SSA. So I feel like it should be reliable.
And you mentioned the expanded playoff.
Yeah.
That was something that Jim Phillips, again, talked about. More access, equitable access is the big thing, from the coaches. Talking earlier this year at ACC spring meetings, that almost was kind of glossed over though, because he just said, "Look, there's momentum for it. We're expected to get more feedback from the networks. We're expected to get more feedback from our consultants, and it seems like despite some of the pushback from other league commissioners." They're just quietly going about their business and pushing that process and that goal forward to expand the playoff, which, I don't know, I still feel I go back and forth on it, but nevertheless, it wasn't we're no longer in favor of that, we ran the numbers, it's not going to happen or something like that.
Well, and I mean, truthfully, the more it sounds like, especially when some of this news was breaking early, the ACC doesn't have much of a say in the number that it gets to. Jim Phillips said he prefers 24 today. We'll see if it seems like either 16 or 24 at this point, but it seems like it's kind of just a waiting game for the ACC.
No question about it. And look, the commissioner, he has a lot on his plate, a lot going on, but let's end with this. He felt like the league is stronger than it's ever been. Yes. Revenue continues to go up without a new TV contract being in place. So things it was stabler last year because you're coming off the lawsuits getting resolved, but it's less chaos here. It's just business as usual finally.
And I think it helps too when you have a team make the national championship. Yeah. I think when you can have that, he talked about the revenue. Well, they had, I want to say it was like 7 teams with 9 wins, and which is a record. So when you have all those teams playing in bigger bowl games, bigger games in the regular season, getting on ABC, and then when you have a Miami go through and knock off SEC teams and big teams along the way, that's going to help as well.
No question about it. Well, look, we appreciate all you guys who've been watching us here on YouTube at On the Pony Express. So please subscribe to the channel, subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. We'll have some stories up as well throughout the week, kind of the feel from these opposing teams about SMU. We'll get to SMU on Friday.
Yeah, saving the best for last.
Yeah, exactly. at least they kick off the day in the press conference room here in Charlotte. But we are looking forward to getting out with some of our subscribers tonight at Clutch. Hopefully it is the first of 2 trips to Clutch for the Mustangs going to Charlotte for the ACC Championship. But for Dean Ralsky, I'm Billy Embody, signing off from day 1 of ACC's Football Kickoff here in Charlotte. We'll catch you guys on Thursday, right here at the same time, wrapping it up as the sun goes down here in Charlotte from the Hilton Uptown. So appreciate all of you guys watching, listening, and tuning in. I'm Billy Embody. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.